We have Mayor John Buckley on our live line this morning. Mayor Buckley, thank you for calling in.
Hey, good morning, Brian. Thanks for having me on again.
Well, Mayor Buckley, let's start out with COVID-19. The IDA has that new loan program. How's that going?
It's actually going pretty well, Brian. We actually have a meeting later this afternoon, to try to hash out some of the details on how to best implement the program. The idea behind it is to really kind of laser focus in on the small local business owners here in the city of Cornell, and try to help them out in this time of crisis, and really try to bridge them through this difficult time. Obviously, with the economic shutdown that we've had, it's had just a devastating impact on small business owners. And those are our neighbors, those are our friends in our community. So, we want to do everything that we can to try to help them out. So we're going to meet today, and we had a meeting last week, and we actually voted to authorize the program, and now it's just a matter of getting all our ducks in a row and making sure that we roll it out in the best way possible to actually provide that help and assistance to the local business owners.
When we first found out about it, was right here on the air, actually, during a Shawn Hogan appearance here on Newsmaker show. I think it was last week, and Shawn said the good thing about this IDA loan program, which he credited Jim Griffin with coming up on the idea for, Shawn said the good thing about it is you'll be able to get this access, these loans fast. Yeah,
that's part of the program, part of the idea. It's something that Jim Griffin and Shawn and myself, we've been discussing for the last several weeks. Whenever you're dealing with state or federal dollars, there's always a lot of hoops, a lot of obstacles to jump over, and it takes time. But we feel like just administering a program here locally, we're able to turn it around a lot quicker and get the money into the hands that need it a lot sooner, without these long delays, without huge lines and backups. Some of the money that Congress has authorized, and during the stimulus program, some of that money was exhausted, and they had to go back and in phase 3.5 and add more money to it. And that's the PPP program. So, the idea here is to have that quick turnaround, and, so we could be more effective. So that's what we're trying to do.
You, speaking of Congress, I understand you had a phone call yesterday with Congressman Tom Reed.
Yeah, so, the congressman has been holding these weekly Zoom meetings with people throughout the 23rd Congressional District, and just kind of keeping the information flowing to the local leaders and the local officials, at the county level, at the city level, the village level, and there's a lot going on in Washington these days in regards to stimulus and how that affects workers, how that affects businesses, and ultimately how it affects local governments such as the city of Cornell and towns and villages and counties. So, the congressman has been doing a wonderful job, and I can't give him enough credit for, keeping the lines of communication open with everyone, and having an open dialogue too. It's not just one-way communication. I talk to the congressman on a weekly basis, through these Zoom meetings and even on the phone, and it's important for the local officials to really express the need for the federal government to provide assistance to local governments, because you and I have talked about this. There's the human side of the pandemic, and then there's the financial side, the fiscal side, and because of the economic shutdown, there's just so much revenue loss that local governments are going to see throughout the year, and we're already seeing it here in the city of Cornell. With sales tax is in the tank. Obviously, people aren't out there buying big ticket items. They're not buying automobiles. You're not buying houses. You're not buying washers and dryers. A lot of people, a lot of businesses are just shut down. So you're not going to the movies. You're not going to the mall. You're not going out to restaurants. You're not doing all the things that you would normally do. not to mention driving. Gas prices have fallen. Gas is pretty cheap right now, but that has an impact on sales tax, because every gallon of gas that you buy, you pay sales tax on it. So when gas prices naturally fall, sales tax falls with it. So, coupled with the pandemic, when people are working from home, you're not taking your kids to school, you're not going to their sporting events, people are just driving less. So, that has a huge impact. So, to put it in perspective, the number one revenue source for the city of Cornell, for a lot of cities, for the city of Corning, is sales tax. So when you have a steep decline in that main revenue source, that has a significant impact, and that's something that you have to plan for and budget for. And I'm just hoping and praying that the federal government takes this seriously and doesn't leave local governments behind, because that aid is needed, because we are on the front lines. When you think about it, Brian, who provides your police coverage, police protection, who provides your fire and ambulance service, who provides your water, who provides your sewer, who paves your streets. That's the local government. That's not the federal government, that's not the state government, that's the locals. We do that right here in house. So the local governments are really the tip of the spear and have the most direct impact on your daily lives and the services that we provide. So that's why it's so important for the federal government to provide that direct aid straight to the municipalities, to the local governments, and not go through the state, because what happens at the state level sometimes is the state will intercept this money, and then in lieu of that, they'll cut the local governments in another area. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. So, the federal government will say, well, hey, we just sent you this money. The state intercepts it and says, well, thank you. And then the state will trickle that down to the local governments. But in doing so, they'll look at some of the other funding streams and cut those and never restore those. So that's kind of what we're trying to guard against. And it's not just Congressman Reed. I've been having weekly conversations with Senator Schumer's office about the same thing, expressing the same concerns. So we're hoping that we'll get this across the goal line in the next phase of stimulus, and it's much needed, and has just and I can't underscore just the impact that the falling revenues will have on local governments throughout the state.
Mayor Buckley, are you in more frequent contact than you would be because of COVID-19 with people like Mayor Fauci in North Cornell and John Hedges in Arkport?
We do stay in contact, but it's more with the federal and state reps right now, Brian.
Sure.
Because of everything's being dictated from above, right? So the local governments are just kind of we're on the fiscal side of it. At least we're in a wait and see mode. So we're in the position where we're advocating for help. We're basically reaching out to advocate. Say, hey, this is our reality. We are victims. We are all victims of this pandemic, and I've said this before. There's no winners in this. On the human side, on the financial side, there are no winners in this. Other than some of the box stores that have remained open, everyone has really been affected in this. So, it's really having those conversations with the state reps, with the federal reps, and making sure that the ball continues to be pushed, to get where we need to be. I will say I think we've made a lot of headway over the past several weeks. Senator Mitch McConnell from Kentucky made that boneheaded comment that he'd rather see states file for bankruptcy than fund local governments, and there was a lot of pushback on that, and I think in kind of a strange twist of fate that remark, as much as I disagreed with it, actually helped the cause, because it really riled up a lot of local government leaders, a lot of people in the House, and including our Congressman Tom Reed. And to Tom's credit, he immediately pushed back on Mitch McConnell, and I think he had he sent out a press release that very day or the very next day, pushing back against it, and he disagreed with it. And I know Tom has conversations with McConnell's office on a frequent basis. So, in a weird way, I think that comment really kind of sparked, the movement and created more momentum towards providing relief to local governments. So, and I think, going back a few weeks, we weren't even really on the playing field, but now we definitely are, and there's momentum. So it's just a matter of what it's going to look like, and when are they actually going to vote on it.
It's Friday, May 1st. This is the day Governor Andrew Cuomo said he's going to make the decision about whether to reopen businesses and schools. And wondering what are you hearing from the upstate Republican legislators that you talked to on that topic?
Well, I think a lot of them are starting to get a little antsy. They want to start reopening, to some degree. I think most people have kind of a phased-in approach. That's what they'd like to do, and I think that's a smart thing to do. I think you have to be smart about it. I don't think you can simply just flick the light switch on and have everyone just flood back to work and open everything all at once. I think the governor has that phased-in approach mentality. Ranking business sectors, industry sectors from high importance to I don't know if importance is the proper word, but more essential to less essential, and I think that's probably the way that it's going to go. It's still a fluid situation, Brian, because there's still, even though I believe that we're on the backside of the apex, we're on the backside of the mountain. We're not at the bottom yet, right? So even in your newscast at the top of the hour, you cited some new positive cases throughout the county.
Right.
So it's still out there. It hasn't gone away yet. We just have to be careful. Just listen to the medical professionals. Listen to Dr. Izzy Muir, Brian O'Donovan, Dr. John Robshaw. I think the fear is, you don't want to open too quickly and take one step forward and then two steps back. So I think you have to be diligent. We've come this far. We've done pretty well. As best we can given the circumstances, but I think we have to be smart about it. We have to do our due diligence, be cautious, and roll it out the right way.
Mayor John Buckley is our guest right now. It's 20 minutes after 8. Going to take a break. It's the Newsmaker show on WLEA.
The Ryan Agencies, your local, independent insurance agencies. Online insurance companies don't know the unique needs of our rural community. The Ryan Agency meets rural needs every day. Local insurance experts offering realistic solutions. Contact the Ryan Agencies today. Good local people offering realistic insurance solutions.
Insurance protection you can rely on. The Ryan Agency.
The Ryan Agency's offices are open Monday through Friday, 8:30 till 4:30 during the quarantine period. They're eager to help in any way they can. Visits by appointment or in case of an emergency. Most other service can be done over the phone, by email, or text. See RyanAgency.com for all their contact information and call them at the local office of your choice in Cornell, Jasper, and Wellsville.
Mullen Factory Direct Floor Covering has been serving this area for many years. During life's ups and downs, we've never quite experienced anything like this. There's no official day or time set for us all to go back to business as usual, but Mullins wants you to know they're there for you and your flooring projects. And it's also a good time to say thanks to all the loyal customers and remind you to support all area local small businesses to help them stay afloat during this unprecedented time. Be safe and stay healthy. From your friends at Mullen Factory Direct Floor Covering in Almond.
Back with Mayor John Buckley. Mayor Buckley, we had it on the 8 o'clock news this morning. NICOM sent a letter, I believe, to Washington, and you said you had a quote in the letter that we read there on the news. Tell us about that letter and why it was sent.
Yeah, so that it really ties into what we were talking about in the previous segment, funding for local governments to offset the revenue shortfalls that we're experiencing due to the pandemic. So NICOM President Robert Kennedy and Executive Director Peter Baines, and NICOM stands for New York Conference of Mayors for those who aren't familiar with the term. So those two, got together and penned a letter and asked for, mayors throughout the state that are NICOM members, to jump on, and I signed off immediately. Obviously, NICOM recognizes how vitally important funding is to local governments and cities and villages in particular. So I didn't hesitate. I jumped right on, and that the letter was actually sent to the New York State congressional delegation first, and then off to Washington. So basically, it was a letter of unity and nonpartisanship. There's a lot of Republican, a lot of Democratic mayors throughout the state. Everyone is in the same boat, and that's the beauty of some of these things that are going on. As far as stimulus goes, is a lot of times, Brian, when you turn on the news and you hear all the rancor and the partisanship in Washington D.C. And I can honestly tell you, talking to Senator Schumer's office, talking to Congressman Tom Reed's office, they're pretty much on the same page. They're pretty much singing the same song and really advocating for local governments, which is a nice thing to see, because it really is not a partisan issue. It's really just a needs issue, and that's the way things should be. But I think part of the trouble in D.C. is the reality for the New York congressional delegation isn't necessarily the reality for maybe the Texas congressional delegation or the New Mexico delegation, because circumstances are just different in each state, especially when you get down in the South or maybe in the Midwest. So it's really trying to articulate our story and telling our story and painting the picture of our reality here, because it might not be the reality that some of the others across the country see.
On the topic of the reality that we are experiencing, what are you hearing this week from local business owners, Mayor Buckley?
Well, we touched base on the IDA program, so there has been a lot of outreach from local business owners, and even though the program itself isn't up and running yet, and we hope that it will be shortly, we do have a pretty healthy list of applicants. So they've definitely taken notice. We've done a good job between Jim Griffin and Shawn Hogan and myself, talking about it on this show and through other outlets as well. So they've definitely taken notice, and the applications have already started to come in. And once we get the parameters set in place, and we'll start reviewing applications, and we'll go from there. But I think it's definitely a benefit to the community, and it's great to have a local IDA. I know sometimes IDAs can kind of get a bad rap. But having a city IDA as we do, we are very well positioned. Most places don't have their own IDAs. In Steuben County, we have a Steuben County IDA. Jamie Johnson does a terrific job, running that. Most municipalities within the county rely on Steuben County IDA, but Cornell has its own IDA, so we don't have to rely on Steuben County's IDA. We have our own the in-house that does a lot of this work, and I think we're a lot better for it. Our community, that is. So it's really a feather in our cap, and a real good tool to have in our local toolbox.
On the topic of nursing homes, Mayor Buckley, the State Health Department reversed their decision this week to allow and advise nursing homes to have COVID-positive patients dealing with the COVID-positive workers working with the COVID-positive patients. Did you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, and Brian, that was something we've been working on for quite some time. I think a lot of people were scratching their heads or even up in arms when it was when we found out that they were allowing positive employees to work. And I can tell you, right here locally, at Cornell Gardens, they were allowed to do that, and Department of Health actually signed off on that, and
at the state level, and they cut the county out of it.
Yeah, partnering with Jack Wheeler, the county manager, and Darlene Smith over there. We've had numerous discussions with Department of Health officials. And I remember, a couple of particular phone conferences we were on, and we had the deputy commissioner of DOH on the line, and I told him, I said, look, we've got people right here in our community that are calling City Hall, that are calling the police department, that are calling the fire department, asking, why are we being made to work when we're positive? And I'm telling this to the DOH deputy director, and I asked him, I said, well, what am I supposed to tell these people? I said, the city doesn't run nursing homes. We don't govern nursing homes. We don't provide oversight. We're not the regulatory authority. I said, that's your job. That's DOH's job. I said, you need to act on this stuff. You can't just ignore this. And Jack Wheeler, to his credit, and Darlene Smith to her credit, and even, Senator Tom O'Mara was on the line, Assemblywoman Marjorie Burns, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. We collectively and collaboratively, we work together on this, and I think, this decision to reverse that policy is a direct result of our local advocating for this. So, we've been working hard on this for the last several weeks, and I can't even tell you how many phone calls and phone conferences I've had just dealing with nursing homes and in the gardens in particular, trying to get those changes made. But again, the city, the county, we don't have regulatory authority over nursing homes. That's the Department of Health through the state that oversees hospitals and nursing homes. So they're the ones that actually have to make the call. But we've been advocating, like you wouldn't believe, over the last month or so.
Yeah, a real tough situation, especially confusing with the Department of Health at the state level, giving the okay for the COVID-positive workers to stay in nursing home workplaces. We've been speaking with Mayor John Buckley. Down to the last 60 seconds, Mayor. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, Brian, it's just, again, I urge everyone to stay vigilant. Don't just start relaxing. I know, the temperatures are warming up. People are getting antsy to get out and do things. And I still urge people to, get outdoors, go for walks, utilize your backyards, go down to the park, go for walks, but still maintain that social distance until we get through this. Because, as I said earlier in the show, you don't want to take one step forward and two steps back. We want to make sure that we do things smart. We want to make good choices and really get through this, the best we can. Obviously, it's been, it's taken an awful human toll, especially on those most vulnerable seniors in our nursing homes, and my heart just breaks for them and for their families. But we really need to just make smart decisions and do the best we can, and we'll get through this.
Thank you, Mayor John Buckley, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us.
Anytime, Brian. Thanks for having me.
It's AM 1480 WLEA Cornell.